You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
You know, when you open your bank app, you kind of expect to see a history book, right?
Yeah, totally. It's just a static ledger.
Exactly. You look at a number on a screen, and I mean, that number just sits there. It's waiting for you to tell it what to do.
Right. It's literally just a digital receipt of decisions you've already made.
Yeah. You are the active participant, and the money is entirely passive. But looking through this massive stack of market research and, fintech newsletters we've gathered for today's deep dive, that static ledger is waking up.
It really is.
The whole financial landscape is moving from this passive record to an active thinking system. It's wild. But before we get into programmable money or automated investments, we really have to look at the pressure cooker forcing this change.
Because the pressure right now is just immense.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with a number that completely recontextualizes the AI arms race.
Let's hear.
So, the sources highlight that SpaceX recently locked in the right to acquire an AI coding startup called Cursor. And the valuation, $60 billion. Or they'll pay $10 billion just for a strategic partnership.
Which is just a staggering amount of money.
Right. I mean, when a company that builds literal rocket ships is throwing around $60 billion just to secure developer tools, just to keep pace with OpenAI and Anthropic, you realize the sheer panic in the market. The financial sector is watching this and scrambling.
What's fascinating here is how that top-level infrastructure panic is, well, it's forcing a complete architectural rewrite of consumer finance.
Oh, so?
Well, banks and fintechs are realizing they can't just buy a generic, off-the-shelf chatbot and slap it on their homepage.
Right, like a basic customer service bot.
Exactly. That doesn't cut it anymore. They have to build foundational AI models that actually understand the mechanics of money.
Block, the company behind Square and Cash App, is actually a perfect example of this. They are quietly building what internal documents are calling the Claude Code for money. Yeah. They created this proprietary framework named Goose, and they are using it to spin up internal agents. They call them MoneyBot and ManagerBot.
That's a huge shift.
It really is. And let's break down why this matters. A chatbot is reactive. You ask it to find a receipt from last Tuesday, and it finds it.
Hopefully.
Right, hopefully. But an agent is proactive. It has autonomy. The goal with something like MoneyBot isn't to answer your questions. It's to execute complex workflows across your payments, your savings, your inventory, completely on its own.
And that shift from the chat layer to the agent layer that changes everything.
I mean, it's like moving from a basic calculator to a proactive financial butler, right?
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Because an agent doesn't need to be prompted for every single step.
Yeah.
If you run a small business, a theoretical manager bot would say, notice your inventory for a specific product is running low.
Okay.
And then it automatically drafts a purchase order to your supplier,
Mm-hmm.
negotiates the payment terms based on your current cash flow, and then executes the payment.
Just entirely in the background.
Entirely in the background.
I have to push back here, though. Let's say my autonomous MoneyBot makes a mistake.
Right.
Like it hallucinates a decimal point and wires 10 times the required amount to a vendor in another country. Who is actually on the hook for that? If I didn't push the button, am I liable?
That is the question.
I mean, does handing autonomy over to an AI make finance safer? Or does it just make it faster to create a massive, irreversible mess?
Well, right now, the legal framework for autonomous financial liability just doesn't exist.
It's completely ambiguous.
Exactly. And that ambiguity is exactly why you see major players testing these agents deeply inside their own corporate walls first, where the blast radius is controlled.
That makes sense. Like Coinbase, for example. The sources show they're running internal tests on AI executive agents. They are literally modeling software after their former executives.
That is wild.
Yeah, these agents live in Slack and email, and they act as virtual teammates. They offer strategic feedback to current employees based on the historical decision-making of the actual people they replaced.
That is a brilliant way to retain institutional knowledge, though.
It is, but digitizing the institutional memory of a former executive and leaving them in your Slack channel is just mind-bending to me.
It feels very sci-fi.
Totally. But you see this push for internal operational agents everywhere in our research today. Like Xero is building an AI-native operating system specifically for accountants to handle bill processing without human data entry.
Right.
American Express bought a startup called Hyper, backed by Sam Altman, entirely to automate corporate expense reporting. Alipay even added a feature called OpenClaw. So AI agents can process payments directly based on overarching user instructions.
The ambition is just huge across the board.
It is, but I mean, there is a massive gap between buying advanced AI and getting normal employees to actually use it effectively.
Yeah, and Ramp, the corporate card giant, they provide kind of a masterclass in solving that adoption gap.
Oh, their internal tool, right?
Yeah, they built an internal AI suite called Glass.
Hmm.
And rather than just giving their team a blank text box and, expecting everyone to become a genius prompt engineer,
Which never works.
never works. Instead, they built a marketplace of over 350 reusable AI skills.
Let me make sure I understand the mechanics of that. Instead of an employee having to figure out how to write this massive, complex prompt to summarize a vendor contract and highlight the payment terms,
Exactly.
they just click a button labeled Extract Payment Terms, and the AI runs a sophisticated, pre-tested chain of commands in the background.
Precisely. They essentially productize their best power users prompts. So any employee can instantly leverage the AI at an expert level without any manual setup,
And that's how Ramp hit a 99% internal adoption rate.
which is unheard of for new software.
Yeah.
But that usage comes with a hidden hazard.
Right, the costs.
Yeah. As thousands of employees start running hundreds of AI agents, the computational costs just skyrocket. Companies are suddenly looking at their cloud bills and realizing they have no idea which team or which specific AI model is burning through their budget.
Hence the rise of platforms like Point 5.
Exactly.
They exist solely to map those ballooning AI costs back to specific internal actions. Because you can't optimize a system if you can't even see where the money is bleeding out.
Right. But cost is just one bottleneck.
Mhm.
There's a much larger structural friction point hiding underneath all of this.
The banking infrastructure itself.
Exactly. If we are building autonomous software agents that can analyze data, negotiate contracts, and make decisions in milliseconds, those agents cannot rely on the traditional banking system to actually move the money.
Because traditional banking is incredibly slow. The legacy system relies on batch processing.
It's ancient by tech standards.
Yeah. If you send an ACH transfer, it's essentially a digital message sent to a clearinghouse asking one bank database to update its ledger and another bank to update theirs. It can take 2 to 3 business days to fully settle.
Right.
It's like having an AI fighter jet trying to land on a dirt road.
That's the perfect analogy. To fix that, the fundamental nature of money has to change from a static entry on a ledger to a programmable token.
So we're talking about stable coins, central bank digital currencies, tokenized deposits.
Tokenization means you aren't just sending a message about the money. The code itself is the money. It carries its own rule sets and it settles instantly.
And the sources outline a perfect real-world application of this. Coastal Bank in the U.S. partnered with a fintech called Tempo.
Right.
They teamed up to build a stablecoin-settled payment infrastructure for cross-border transactions. They basically took the traditional banking messaging system and paired it with on-chain crypto settlement.
So it bypasses the correspondent banks.
Exactly. Instead of routing money through 3 different correspondent banks across borders and waiting days, the programmable token moves the value instantly, with fewer intermediaries taking a cut.
And the institutional players know this is the future of regulated volume. Look at Kraken's parent company, Payward.
Oh, the Bitnomial acquisition.
Yeah, they didn't just try to build this internally. They went out and bought Bitnomial for up to $550 million.
$500 million.
Because Bitnomial already has the licenses from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. They are essentially buying the regulatory approval to offer traditional regulated derivatives using this new programmable infrastructure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the traditional legacy banks are feeling the existential heat from this entirely new stack of technology.
Absolutely.
Faster onboarding, transparent pricing, instant cross-border settlement. These used to be meat premium features. Now they're just the baseline for survival.
The research refers to traditional banking as the ultimate messy market.
Messy market, I like that.
Yeah. Messy markets are industries crippled by fragmented, operationally complex, paper-heavy workflows. The AI being deployed into these verticals isn't being designed to act as an assistant to a human worker.
Right.
It is being designed to systematically replace the entire operational workflow.
You either adapt to that reality or you get crushed. Lending Club is a great example of an evolution here. They started years ago as a peer-to-peer lending platform,
Right, I remember that.
but the sources show they are now rebranding to Happen Bank. They are trying to complete their metamorphosis into a full-service digital bank because standalone features just aren't enough anymore.
No, they're not.
And contrast that with the Middle East, where they are leapfrogging Western markets entirely. Instead of trying to patch decades-old COBOL mainframe architecture to make it work with modern AI.
It is a nightmare.
Right, it's impossible. So instead, they are building inclusion-focused open finance ecosystems from scratch on modern rails.
And when you don't have the technical debt of legacy systems, you can move exponentially faster. And that speed is fueling an incredibly vicious battle to own those modern rails.
The infrastructure turf wars are brutal right now. Let's look at the clash between Stripe and Airwallex.
Oh, this is fascinating.
It's classic Silicon Valley strategy warfare. Early on, Airwallex reportedly rejected a $1.2 billion acquisition offer from Stripe.
Walked away from over $1 billion.
Walked away, decided to keep building, and now they are generating over $1.3 billion in revenue, taking Stripe on directly. But I want you to explore the philosophical divide between how these two companies actually operate, because it kind of dictates how the whole internet economy is built.
It really does. It comes down to a fundamental disagreement about where the true value of the financial system actually lies.
Okay.
Stripe operates on an API-driven, developer-first model. To use an analogy, Stripe builds the world's most efficient, beautiful car engine. They hand you the engine, and you build the rest of the car around it.
Right, you plug their code into your website, and instantly you can accept payments.
Exactly. While Airwallex looked at that and decided they didn't just want to build the engine, they want to build the car, own the dealership, and pave the roads.
Ah, the full stack strategy.
Yes. They spent years doing the unglamorous, grueling work of securing local banking licenses and building proprietary payment rails across 50 different global markets.
Wow.
They don't just want to be the software layer that routes the payment. They want to own the underlying banking infrastructure that holds the money.
And they're even crossing over into the physical world now. Airwallex is launching an in-store point-of-sale device to take on Square.
Right into physical retail.
But that physical retail space is so crowded, and new challengers with massive war chests are appearing seemingly out of nowhere. Look at Slash Financial.
Their origin story is so interesting.
It's wild. They originally built a niche platform to help teenagers manage the money they made reselling sneakers. Yeah. But by solving the complex spending needs of that hyper-specific, high-velocity demographic, they realized they had inadvertently built a highly robust corporate banking platform.
Just by accident, almost.
Basically. They recently pivoted entirely, raising $100 million at a $1.4 billion valuation to fight heavyweights like Brex and Ramp.
And Ramp is a juggernaut in this space right now. They are currently nearing $1.4 billion in annual recurring revenue.
Up from $1 billion just 6 months ago.
Yeah, they are scaling at a blistering pace to prepare for a public offering.
Yet Revolut is playing a totally different game with the public markets.
They really are.
They were recently valued at $75 billion, making them one of the most valuable fintechs in the world. But they're actively pushing their IPO timeline out to 2028.
Which goes against all the usual pressure.
Exactly. You would think investors would want liquidity now. But Revolut is delaying so they can secure a U.S. bank license first. Operating as a public company means living and dying by quarterly earnings reports.
The scrutiny is intense.
Right. You can't easily absorb the massive short-term costs of expanding global lending products or securing heavy regulatory licenses when Wall Street analysts are screaming about your profit margins every 90 days. They are buying themselves the time to build an impenetrable foundation.
And the scale of this corporate warfare in Silicon Valley? It eventually trickles down to dictate the actual user experience for the consumer.
How so?
Well, the technology being developed to win these infrastructural battles is starting to change the actual physical cards you carry in your pocket.
Oh, right. The consumer products coming out of this are fascinating. Like Visa and TikTok partnered to launch a specific debit card in the UK, tailored entirely around how content creators earn and spend money.
Very niche, but very smart.
Yeah. But even more futuristic is what Marqeta is doing with something called flexible credentials.
This is wild.
Instead of carrying a debit card, a credit card, and a store card, you carry one physical piece of plastic. And when you swipe it at the grocery store, the software instantly analyzes your balance and the items you are buying and dynamically routes the transaction.
Millisecond routing.
Right. So it might pull from your checking account for the apples, but instantly switch to a buy now, pay later microloan for the expensive coffee machine, all in the millisecond the chip is read.
And the consumer experiences zero friction. The complexity of routing the credit lines, the risk assessment, the ledger updates, all of that is abstracted away into the background software.
But the physical swipe still carries a massive hidden cost that is causing huge friction between the biggest companies in the world right now.
The interchange fees.
Yes, Walmart is heavily pushing back against a massive proposed settlement designed to reduce Visa and MasterCard interchange fees. You know, the fees merchants pay every time you swipe your card.
Right.
Walmart's argument is that the settlement just temporarily tweaks the profit margins. It doesn't dismantle the underlying duopoly structure that forces merchants to pay those exorbitant rates in the first place.
So the front-end software feels like the future, but the back-end economics are still firmly rooted in legacy monopolies.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? We have a world where autonomous AI agents are preparing to spend our money, programmable tokens are being built to move it at light speed, and massive corporations are warring over who gets to collect the toll.
It's a lot.
It's huge.
Yeah.
But the sheer velocity of this technological shift is completely warping how capital is allocated in the first place.
Yes. The fundamental math of early-stage startup investing is breaking under the pressure of this AI transition.
How is the math breaking?
Well, the traditional venture capital seed model relied on a very specific statistical reality. You invest in 100 companies, 99 of them fail, or just return your money. But one of them hits an exponential home run, returning 1,000 times your initial investment. And that single winner pays for all the failures and generates the profit for the fund.
But the sources show that the math no longer adds up.
Exactly.
Valuations for early-stage companies, especially anything touching AI infrastructure, have surged so aggressively that the potential upside is compressed.
The entry price is just too high.
Right. If you invest in a seed stage company at a $100 million valuation instead of a $10 million valuation, even if that company becomes a massive success, your return is capped at maybe 50 to 150x.
Not 1,000x.
Exactly, not 1,000. The home runs aren't big enough to cover the strikeouts anymore.
And the venture market is bifurcating as a result. On one end, you have highly concentrated bets on massive, hyper-expensive, must-win AI companies. On the other end, you have a vast wasteland of low-probability bets that can't secure follow-on funding.
So traditional portfolio diversification is basically failing?
Failing completely. To survive as an investor now, you need pure algorithmic picking ability.
And as the traditional VC model strains, the quantitative algorithms of Wall Street are stepping in to fill the void, and they're reaching all the way down to Main Street.
The quants are taking over.
Yeah. We are seeing major legacy banks like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs packaging highly sophisticated algorithm-driven trading strategies, the kind of complex risk modeling usually reserved for elite hedge funds.
Right.
And they're offering them to family offices, pension funds, and even individual retail investors. The logic of investment is being fully automated. Look at Iconic, the wealth management firm for tech billionaires. They are deploying $3 billion into AI startups, placing massive concentrated bets on companies like Anthropic.
But the algorithms aren't just allocating capital into tech startups anymore. They're beginning to price the risk of reality itself.
Yeah, this part of the deep dive blew my mind. Citadel Securities is actively exploring entering the prediction markets.
Which is a huge leap.
They are looking past traditional sports betting or stock derivatives to focus on pricing macroeconomic and geopolitical risk.
Right, like elections or supply chain disruption.
Exactly. Prediction markets allow participants to financially hedge against real-world events in real time, driven by algorithms that constantly adjust the probability of those events occurring. And this isn't some fringe concept. The sources note these markets are projected to hit $1 trillion in annual volume by 2030.
We are financializing everyday reality.
We really are. And as these algorithms expand their reach from trading stocks to managing corporate workflows, they start making decisions that deeply impact human lives.
This is where it gets incredibly sensitive.
It does. The reports detail instances where Oracle is allegedly utilizing algorithmic modeling to guide decisions around employee layoffs.
Wow.
And there is a profound tension here. I mean, on one hand, an algorithm might identify operational redundancies with a cold mathematical efficiency that completely avoids human bias. On the other hand, reducing an employee's livelihood to a data point on an optimization curve, it removes every ounce of human context and empathy from the process. We are stepping into an immense ethical gray area here, deploying systems that shape society before society has even agreed on the rules of engagement.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of this digital ambition, The high-frequency algorithms predicting geopolitics, the AI agents managing corporate credit cards, the complex models calculating workforce optimization.
Yeah.
It all shares one inescapable physical vulnerability. Software still requires hardware, and hardware requires power.
Right. The ultimate bottleneck for the programmable economy isn't code, it's electricity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The digital world is slamming headfirst into the physical limitations of the power grid. Over a dozen U.S. states are currently drafting or considering temporary bans on the development of new data centers.
As the sources point to Maine, right?
Yes. Maine is advancing legislation to halt approvals for large-scale server facilities. The sheer amount of electricity required to run the thousands of processors needed to train and deploy these AI models is threatening to overwhelm local power grids.
And compromise environmental targets.
Exactly. And this raises an important question. We have figured out how to turn money into programmable code.
Right.
We know how to build autonomous agents to spend it. We are rewriting the global financial rails.
Right.
But can the physical Earth actually generate enough power to sustain the digital future we are inventing? The defining friction of the next 10 years won't be software engineering, it will be thermodynamics.
That is just wow. We are attempting to build an infrastructure of infinite digital intelligence, and we are plugging it into an aging, finite electrical grid. It is an incredible reality check.
It really is.
Well, we have covered massive ground today. We started by exploring how the definition of a bank account is changing from a passive ledger of historical decisions into an active ecosystem of AI agents that can manage your inventory and negotiate your contracts.
A total paradigm shift.
We broke down the mechanics of tokenization, seeing how money itself is being transformed into programmable software to bypass those slow, legacy banking rails. We watched the fintech giants battle it out, choosing between building the API engines or laying down the full-stack roads.
Turf wars.
Yeah. And finally, we looked at how this technological acceleration is breaking the old math of investing and crashing violently into the physical limits of our power grid.
It's a lot to process.
It is. And it leaves you with something profound to mull over as you step away today. As we hand over more of the operational mechanics of our world to these systems, if AI agents handle our investments, if they execute our spending, if they write the software that runs our banks, and if algorithms are increasingly trusted to optimize our corporate workforces.
What's left for us?
Exactly. What will the uniquely human role in the future economy actually look like? When the friction of execution drops to near zero, what becomes the most valuable human skill?
It's the ultimate question.
It is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll see you next time.
Spoken Tech for your ears.